Prices. Live from Waterford and Dungarvan, this is Waterford at 1 News.
Good afternoon, I'm Liz Reddy. Today's top stories. The Garda Chief Superintendent in Waterford's reassuring the public their services available 24/7. The elderly and people with long-term illnesses may be advised to stay at home during the outbreak for several weeks. A hotel in West Waterford says business has dropped by 70% since the coronavirus outbreak. And in sport, European captain Padraig Harrington says plans are still in place to stage this year's Ryder Cup. The Garda Chief Superintendent in the Waterford Division is reassuring the public that their service is available on a 24/7 basis. A COVID-19 National Coordination Unit operating from Garda headquarters is coordinating and managing the response to the COVID-19 crisis. Padraig Dunn says Gardaí are there for anyone who needs help.
We have extra members on the ground, extra members out to patrol, and they're there to provide a service to communities, to reassure them and to keep them safe. We still have our normal day-to-day work where we're arresting people who commit crimes, but we also have staff available to assist and reassure the public. We have 24-hour stations operating from Waterford City, Tramore and from Dungarvan. And outside of that, we have 24-hour services operating in Kilmacthomas in the centre of the county and in Lismore in West Waterford.
He says people have to take heed of the HSE advice on social distancing and hygiene.
The individual building block of a community is a family, and if each family decides to do their bit, we'll have very resilient communities, and we're all going to get through this anyway, but we'll get through this way more positively than if we don't take personal responsibility.
The Waterford Garda Chief Superintendent is also asking parents to ensure their children are not congregating in areas such as shopping centres.
We are seeing instances of large groups of young people congregating outside shopping centres, and that is contrary to the advice of the HSE. What we do individually today can impact positively in 14 days' time, or it could impact negatively. If there are parents or guardians out there, ensure that their young people aren't going to shopping centres. That's where people, maybe with compromised immune systems that have to do their shopping themselves, are going. And we don't want this congregation of young people contrary to the HSE guidelines.
The elderly and people with long-term illnesses may be advised to stay at home during the coronavirus outbreak for several weeks. The Taoiseach says this is called cocooning, and medical experts say it aims to create a zone of safety around the vulnerable person. Chair of the Coronavirus Expert Advisory Group, Cillian de Gascon, says people should prepare for this.
Some people may need to stay in their house for a prolonged period of time, and yes, sort of things will be dropped at the door and they can bring them in. Obviously, you want some social contact for those individuals, so now may be the time, if people aren't very tech savvy, to sort of set them up, make sure they have a telephone, make sure they sort of set them up on Skype or set them up on FaceTime if you can, so that they have means of sort of staying in communication with the outside world, with their family, with their friends.
A hotel in West Waterford says business has dropped by 70% since the coronavirus outbreak. Lawler's Hotel in Dungarvan employs 70 full and part-time staff. General Manager Larry Bowe spoke to WLR News at the weekend.
Tonight alone, normally a Saturday night in the restaurant, we'd be pretty busy. And tonight we're after losing 90% of our bookings over the last 2 days. And yesterday alone, I'd say we lost over 60% of our room business up until the end of May. Now that is a concern. When the tour operators are pulling the plug like that on you, you're wondering, what decision do we have to make next? Speaking with the owner of the property earlier on this morning, and there may be a possibility that we may need to close down for a short period here or temporarily.
He says the hospitality industry will struggle to survive during this crisis.
On social media you see some of the local businesses here already, particularly hospitality, bars, restaurants, they're now going to start doing delivery service. It's good to see that, but we need to evolve quickly ourselves to do that, because this now is, at this stage, is kind of a case of survival, which is a big concern, especially for the hospitality industry. There's other industries and it's good to work from home, there's no problem to work from home, but that's just not viable in the hotel industry.
Waterford Sinn Féin councillor Conor McGuinness says the local authority needs to suspend rates for businesses who've been affected by the coronavirus.
The normal footfall that we'd expect to see is down considerably. And this is very worrying for businesses. I mean, many have had to close their doors. We've seen a huge number of people laid off across Waterford. Here in Dungarvan, we've seen a huge increase in layoffs. But it's a very worrying time for business. What we're calling for is a commercial rates holiday for hospitality, tourism, retail and the SME sector. And we have to remember, small and medium enterprises are the biggest single kind of employer in the state. They're the backbone of our economy, especially outside of the greater Dublin area in places like Waterford City and County.
He says the government needs to make funding available to ensure businesses and local government can continue.
The rates holiday on its own won't solve the problem, but it'll be a help and it's something that we can do. My colleagues have been speaking with national government. We're adamant that businesses should be given a break on their commercial rates for a period of time, maybe 3 months, and that the central exchequer will have to come in and fund local government in the meantime. This is too important. We can't allow our economy to fail, but we have to take the very sensible precautions to ensure public health. So government needs to make that funding available to keep local government going, to keep local businesses going and to keep people safe.
Facilities in place at University Hospital Waterford to allow family members to drop off care packages and essentials to patients. Strict visitor restrictions remain in place due to the outbreak of the coronavirus.
A drop-off and collection point for laundry and other essentials has been set up at the front hall of University Hospital Waterford opposite reception. It'll be open from 12 noon until 2 p.m. only from Monday to Friday, excluding bank holidays. People are asked to have all bags labelled with the patient's name, ward and home address. They're respectfully asked not to leave any bags or personal belongings at reception. Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil are meeting to discuss policy as efforts to form a government continue. It's the first of 3 days of talks between the two parties. Our political correspondent Sean Defoe reports.
3 days of talks are planned between Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil this week. The slow dance around a government continues and it's expected much of the talk today will relate to the response to the coronavirus rather than actual policy negotiations. The numbers are tricky even for a Fine Gael-Fianna Fáil coalition. They wouldn't have the seats needed for a majority. They're 8 short and the Greens are refusing to engage in government formation talks for the moment. They instead want a government of national unity. Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil are going to look to make up the numbers with independent TDs if possible, but there is some argument for not changing a government while the coronavirus is ongoing, as this is not the best time to be changing ministers in key positions. It seems the coronavirus has made the process of forming a government even more uncertain as these talks pick up again.
3 men have been arrested in connection with the robbery and death of a woman in South Dublin earlier this month. Jacqueline McGovern died after being hit by a getaway car in Killiney following a burglary at a shop in Dalkey on March 10th. Gardaí arrested 2 men in their 20s early this morning. They have since arrested a third suspect also in his 20s. They're being held at Dundrum and Dunleary Garda stations.
WLR Sport.
With Virgin Media Waterford. Virgin Mobile on a 30-day contract. Nothing hidden.
European captain Padraig Harrington says plans are still in place to stage this year's Ryder Cup despite the coronavirus. Europe are due to take on the USA at Whistling Straits in September, but the US PGA Championship, due to be staged in May in San Francisco, became the latest tournament to be postponed until later in the year. No tournaments in the US are scheduled until the week of May 18th at the earliest, but Harrington says it's too soon to say if the Ryder Cup will go ahead.
September's a long way off. There's no change to the situation at all. I know there's been some rumours and things like that, but they had to put out a statement saying that there's no change, but there's definitely no change. There was a big announcement yesterday for the PGA Tour about events being cancelled up until May, and the PGA Championship is postponed. So look, that's as far as they've got. The middle of May at this stage is where they've taken steps to.
A decision on whether Irish racing will continue behind closed doors is expected today. The board of Horse Racing Ireland is to meet to review the hosting of the last 5 fixtures which had no crowds. At the moment, racing in the UK is suspended. Waterford Wildcats American-born player Maria Pallarino has returned to the US. She made a huge impact with the club this season and was also the mentor to the young players. Head coach Gillian Hayes says Maria was happy to stay, but her parents insisted she return to her home in Philadelphia. She says Maria was bitterly upset to have to leave Waterford so quickly.
She was upset upset the way it all ended. She was trying to get run around to say goodbye to a couple of the girls. We always have an end of season party and we couldn't have that for her, and just got to say goodbye to a few people. Some of them it was just texting them goodbye, and after all her efforts and everything she did for the season, she was upset herself heading off.
Sports news on WLR's thanks to Virgin Media Waterford.